Wise men on their way following the Star of Bethlehem who stay overnight in the very poor home of a widowed lady and her crippled son. And the favorite part probably for our family, particularly for Dad and Jim and I, is I'm just going to set it up for you, okay? Here it goes. And Jim, I need your help on this. Amal, the little boy, is talking with one of the kings who happens to be quite deaf. And he's supposed to be being good, but he asks a lot of questions, and he says, by pointing to a bird, "What is that?"
A parrot.
No. Remember, he's deaf, okay?
Eh?
What is that?
A parrot.
Does it talk?
Eh?
Does it talk?
How would I know?
Does it bite?
Eh?
Does it bite?
Yes.
And what is that?
This is my box. This is my box. I never travel without my box.
Well, this is my box. I never travel with my box, except when I'm coming to Birmingham, because in my box I have memories of Jim. The first one being when he came home from the hospital. My mother was holding him in the front seat, and we had been told that babies don't do much for themselves, but they do like to pull your hair. So I remember I was 7, almost 7, David was 9, and I remember us leaning over the front seat to look at this little one that was coming to live in our house and offering him our head in case he wanted to pull our hair. He declined to do that day, but later on, both literally and figuratively, he pulled our hair lots. One of our mother's favorite times is Jim was about 8 or 9 months old, and she took him to the doctor just for a well baby checkup. And she walks into the exam room with Jim, and the doc says, "Just put him on the exam table here. You can sit over here, Mom. I can handle him." Well, Jim was not about to be handled by anybody at that time. And every muscle that he had was in motion, and he was screaming his head off until the doctor finally had to turn to Mother rather sheepishly and say, "I guess I need your help." And Mom had to go pick him up, and then the doctor too could continue his exam. A similar thing happened the first time he went to the dentist. Must have been going through Jim's mind, you want to put your hands where? Because he was not going to open his mouth for anybody. Mom took him then to another dentist, Dr. Kiss. And Dr. Kiss was much more child savvy and said, "You want to ride in my chair?" It goes up and down. "You want to see my polisher? It polishes your teeth. Watch, I'm going to polish my fingernail. Want me to polish yours?" By the end of the visit, he'd had a whole dental exam. And we just kind of wonder how much of those young experiences make him so child savvy today and so good with his patients. I remember Jim getting punished. I don't remember what he got punished for, but Mom had to come up with a way of punishing him. Now, Jim masquerades very well as an extrovert, but really he's an introvert. And Mother's first choice for punishment was to send him to his room. There's all kinds of things to do for an introvert in a bedroom. That was just no punishment at all. And so Mother finally found one thing that worked. She would take a straight-backed dining room chair, sit in the middle of a room where he couldn't reach anything, and Jim had to sit in that chair until his time was up. Mom told us later that when Jim was being punished that way, that she would have to leave the room because she was laughing so hard. And if she were here tonight, which she would dearly love, she would say, "I had never seen anybody find so many ways to sit in a straight back." One of our chores together was to clean up the kitchen after supper. And we just did it every night. I found out late, just within the last year or so, that one of us would wash, one of us would dry. And I found out just lately that Jim would finagle that I would dry. Because if I washed, well shit, I just did a good job. But I was so slow in doing it that he had to stand there and wait for something to be in the drainer for him to dry. But he figured out if he washed, then he could do it quicker and And I can remember him just filling up the drainer full to overflowing and then laughing at me because I couldn't keep up with it. Now, I know the Lees have appreciated Jim's ability at the lake to clean up the kitchen after supper. when he and Helen have gone down there with him, but I'm just here to tell you, you better watch the quality. Another thing about doing dishes after supper is you have to deal with the leftover food. And here's Jim's logic on leftovers. He thinks, okay, if I take this meat or potatoes or vegetable or whatever and put it in a refrigerator dish and put it in the refrigerator, then tomorrow I'm going to have to not only wash the refrigerator dish, but the pan that Mom used to heat it up again, and the serving dish she put it in for the second day. So why don't I just save myself a whole lot of effort and work and eat the leftovers now? So we hardly ever have leftovers. I think we just eat them. Also, when we were doing dishes, we would sing together. It doesn't matter what it was, and I really don't remember what we sang, but I'd start off a song sometimes. And Jim would start singing with me, but he'd sing it in a completely different key. Knowing that I cannot sing in my key, listen to him in his key, and stay on my key. And he would throw me off. And then he would just laugh, and he just had a grand time doing that, and he still does.
Never lost.
And he never lost.
And we did the second.
Okay. Another musical memory, our dad always listened to classical music. And as Jim got older and learned that repertoire, a new piece would come on the radio and he'd say, "Oh, Jim, name it, who's it by, and what key is it in?" Well, sometimes I could get the name of it and the composer, but without perfect pitch, like Jim, I didn't have a clue what key it was in, so I just guessed A flat. And Jim again would just laugh because he knew something that his big sister did not do. When Jim was about 10, the folks were out of town at Christmas time for a family funeral, and Jim and I decided that we were going to decorate the house for Christmas and have it done when they got back. First order of business was to go get a Christmas tree. I was driving, Jim was in the passenger seat. I got in the car and I gave Jim my wallet and I said,
Hold the money bags.
"Oh." And we just laughed about that for a long time. When Southwest Airlines came out with their Bags Fly Free program, you know, should this bag fly free? It didn't work. One of Mom's favorite memories is Jim was about 12 years old, and at Easter time, instead of hiding Easter eggs, Mom would hide jelly beans around the big living room, dining room combination. And Jim was about 12. He was the only one home by that time, and he still wanted jelly beans hid. So Mom said, okay, and hid 20 of them. So Easter morning, Jim finds 12 and 15, 17, 18, 19, 19, 19. Goes to Mom and said, "Mom, I think you only hid 19. She said, "I hid 20, Jim. Go look again." Now the rule was you had to be able to see the jelly bean. You didn't have to move anything. If you got your head and looked at the right spot, you'd find the jelly bean. He looked. He didn't find it that day. He didn't find number 20 the next day. He didn't find it the next week, or the next month, or the next season. Now this is Easter, remember. In the fall, they get a bad electrical storm and the lights flicker. Mom says, "Oh, we better get ready for some candles. Take the fancy candles off the dining room table and put in some stubby ones that we can light." And then she just watched. Now, on the dining room table, Mom had two perfectly plain, crystal clear, cube candlesticks about yay size. See through them. And in them she had fancy black candles. They had all kinds of doodads on. It was really beautiful. And she just turned around and watched because she knew what was going to happen. Jim took out a black candle and just stopped. Under the black candle was number 20. One black jelly bean. And Mom just stood there and laughed and laughed. And if she were here, she would say it was one of the few times that she's ever seen Jim speechless. I've come up with top 10 experiences or accomplishments of Jim. I'd like to see if you can identify with any of these, if you have these in your history. Number 10, did you, like Jim, ever learn to use a weed sprayer to kill poison ivy, then use your new skill to spray the base of the plant, and then, follow it up through the hedge, get it all good, and then wait for a long time for the hedge to refoliate? Did you, number 9, like Jim, when he was eating breakfast alone with his grandma and grandpa, and grandma was just talking a blue streak, say, in your 4-year-old voice, "Phew, let's have a little peace and quiet around here." Number 8, did you have a dad when you and your sister would lie in their beds in adjoining rooms and talk instead of sleep? Would, when he'd had just about enough, call up from the bottom of the stairs, probably in a gruffer voice than he really felt he needed to use, and say,
Now listen, you two.
Number 7, did you, like Jim, ever mix a milkshake at Dairy Queen, only to push the cup up too far, such that you cut a hole in the bottom of the paper cup and ice cream went everywhere? Number 6, were you conscientious and honest enough, like Jim, to chase down a Dairy Queen customer to give her a nickel because you had inadvertently shortchanged her? Number 6, can you, like Jim, sing the entire Amal and the Night Visitors opera? Can you sing it in key? Do you delight in telling people, as does Jim, and this is a fill in the blank, Jim, I had to wait until my mother was 90 years old
Before I could beat her in Scrabble.
and his current favorite, my 94-year-old mom,
That could be a lot of things.
has her own wireless network.
Yeah.
Did you or have you incorporated your father's work ethic? And Jim has, and it goes kind of like this.
It seems like there's never enough time to do it right, but there's always enough time to do it over. So slow down and do it right the first time, and you won't have to do it over.
Love it.
Number 2, did you, like Jim, ever wear a new shirt to church, just find it really uncomfortable, then discover and remove the cardboard from under the cover to the delight and amusement of those around you all during the sermon? And number 1, and this one has kept me awake at night, can you, as can Jim, identify and name all the notes in any given 4 to 5 tone train whistle? Think about that.
Wow.
We began hearing about this Helen person, and finally last March, Jim and Helen flew to Kansas City, and Mom and I went to the airport to pick her up. And as they came out of the gate, Helen said, "Oh, who do I hug first?" You know, meaning Mom or me. Who do I hug? Oh, girl hug, girl hug. So we 3 girls huddled and just talking, laughing, having a grand old time. When we finally broke up, here was Jim. Just completely pouting because he had not yet been hugged. And Helen said, "Now you know how I feel when you come to my parents." But we loved Helen immediately. She fit right in with us, with our family. We just got along famously. And by the time that 24-hour weekend was over, we agreed with Mrs. Fenton, who's the wife of the minister of their church, who we heard, when she first heard that Jim and Helen were dating, said something like,
Oh, you and Helen Lee. That's a no-brainer.
Jim has kept close to me and Mom, especially since Dad died about 2.5 years ago. He calls Mom, emails her a couple times a week. He sends her packets of interesting things like choir programs or puzzles or Sudoku or funnies or whatever. And just collects them all until he has a package full, and then he puts them in the mail to her. She just loves getting those from you. It gives her something good to look about. He texts me often, not always, but often, on a Saturday morning. It is a one-word text with a question mark after it. And the word is?
Chat?
Chat. And so I finish what I'm doing, I get on the phone and I call. We always talk about whatever we want to talk about. Sometimes we cry, sometimes we laugh. No, every time we laugh. Sometimes we pray, but it's just been a very nice connection between sister and brother. And now Helen is wonderful at emailing Mom, emailing me, calling us, and it's just a delight to have a twofer as opposed to just a one. Mom wants me to tell you that, when she and Mom first started communicating, what do you call this lady? She's not your mother, you can hardly call her Mom. But they settled on Mom in quotation marks. And Mom's delighted that in, 18, 17 hours, those quotation marks go away. And she's glad for that. Proverbs 18:24 says that there's a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. And it seems to me that that verse won't mean anything to anybody unless they've had a brother that's stuck close. Well, I have. I'm blessed. I thank you. I love you. I'm delighted that Helen's going to be my sister. She already is my sister in spirit. Tomorrow it'll be legal. And finally, Jim's favorite hymn is Come, Thou Fount of Every Blessing. Tune our hearts to sing Thy grace. Streams of mercy from Him, never ceasing, call for our songs of loudest praise. And the second verse starting here, I raise my Ebenezer, hither by thy help I'm come. And that's from 1 Samuel 7, where Samuel took a stone and he called it Ebenezer, my stone of help. Up to this point, the Lord has helped us. And it seems to me that this weekend, and particularly tomorrow, it's an Ebenezer not only for Jim, but it's an Ebenezer to be raised for Jim and Helen. That hither up to this point, He has helped us. And our God is the same yesterday, today, and forever, and He will help you in the future as well. Bless you. Love you.